Hello, viewers. Thanks for joining us today in the second episode of IT Mythbusters. Now, for people who are joining us for the first time, I just want to make sure that we are clear about what we're going to do today. There exist a lot of myths, like the urban legend. We have heard from our people in our walks of life, and we pick one of the topic and then try to brainstorm between myself and Mike to see is it a real myth or we're going to get it busted. So stay tuned for this edition of what we're going to talk about. So, Mike, nice to catch up again. Um, what is the topic
Good to
for
see you
today?
again, Suresh.
Yeah. So, what is the topic for today, Mike,
So
that people are
today,
really eager?
yeah, the myth I was thinking we were going to go after today is this one. In the world of digital transformation, you cannot be successful without a cloud first strategy.
I love
What
it.
do you think? How's that one sound?
I love it. I think this there is a lot more onto that, but I think bring it on. I think we have to get this one. So let's get to the basics of it. Now, any digital transformation about cloud first. First, let's understand, has cloud passed the hype curve? We have now about 10 years, 12 years now with a lot of things happening. What is the current state of cloud in organizations adopting it? Do you think everybody is adopting it, or do you think there's still a lot of game to catch up in a cloud adoption? What's the trend of cloud today?
So that's a great question. And what I have seen in the research that I've done recently is that about 16% of organizations are 100% cloud,
Right.
right? And depends on which analyst you look at and what survey was done. It usually runs somewhere between 15 and 20%. And I've also seen, interestingly enough, I've seen organizations are projecting that they'll be primarily cloud for their workloads, for the most of their workloads, about 86%, 83%, I think it was, I'm sorry, of organizations are projecting that in 2022, they will be primarily cloud with all of their workloads. So there's this big hockey stick that people have to get through to get there. The other one more stat for you, Suresh. The 85% of organizations are suggesting that they have a significant gap in cloud skills. So we're going to try to pick up almost 60% into the cloud, and only 15% of organizations think they have the skills to be able to do this. What I've seen in the research that I've done is that about 16% of companies are where they want to be. They're in the cloud, right? And 83% of companies are projecting that they'll be in the cloud for the bulk of their workloads by the end of 2022. Okay, so we got about almost 60% of the way to go when we've been, over the last 15 years, which is how long cloud's been around, over the last 15 years, we've been going about 1% a year, but somehow we're going to get 60% in the next 2 years. The other thing I've seen, which kind of blows my mind when we talk about these numbers, right, is that 85% of companies state that they have a significant gap in cloud skills. They don't have the skills that they need to be able to move to the cloud. So I don't know how all this comes together, right? I don't see there. I'm not an astrophysicist. I didn't major in math, but the numbers don't add up here, Suresh.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely right. And there's another spin to the story, right? Now you're talking about organizations that are trying to look at cloud first strategy. So what is going to happen about the legacy applications that are being driven for several years? Are we going to kind of chuck this out and say that we are all moving to go to cloud? Is that a reality that we're going to kind of do application modernization through legacy towards moving in cloud first, or are we kind of fooling someone else? I'm just wondering.
Don't get me started on this one, right? I mean, to your point, you see organizations that are commonly adopting either a refactoring strategy where they're going to modernize their applications with modern architectures, 100% in the cloud. Or you see organizations that are going to pick up and do a lift and shift for these sorts of applications, which, you know what, you're lifting and shifting into an environment that is not architected to run that way, right?
Exactly.
The modern apps, when you build things from scratch, when you refactor into the cloud, you're able to take advantage of all the capabilities. You're able to collect all those benefits from the cloud. But when you do that lift and shift of pre-existing applications, you don't get the same sorts of benefits.
Right.
Right. And so, and I think there's also a nuance there where a lot of times what we see organizations doing is they assume that they have to pick a single cloud, right? And because there's a lot of complexities when you're working in the cloud. So they pick AWS or they pick Azure or they pick GCP because they think it's cool or whatever, and they move everything into that one environment. Well, not every application is designed to work the same way, right? It's not one size fits all in the cloud.
Right.
So you've got this issue where folks don't have the skills that they need. You've got multiple options from a cloud perspective. You've got all three of the hyperscalers that we just talked about: Azure, AWS, and GCP. You also have the enterprise clouds, right, which offer some significant benefits because they are these public clouds that are actually architected for a specific kind of workload. My company, Expedient, offers a VMware-based enterprise cloud that's perfect for steady state VMware-based workloads. Another good example is a company like VirtuStream that offers workloads that are perfectly designed for SAP, right? Those sorts of enterprise clouds run better than the hyperscalers for those specific kind of workloads.
Right.
But even if you look at the hyperscalers, right, Azure does some things better than Google does. Google does some things better than AWS does. So you really want to be able to pick and choose. But now you got all of these different skills that you got to do. There's a big problem there, right? Not to mention, quite frankly, all of this stuff is about things that fundamentally don't necessarily move the needle when it comes to what we're talking about with digital transformation, right? Digital transformation, which was the whole context of the first part of this conversation of our myth, right, is about leveraging technology and data to transform business models and customer experiences, right? So while there is a role, cloud is foundational to really being able to get the benefits of what you want to do for a digital transformation when it comes to speed and agility, when it comes to leveraging new and emerging technologies. There's a lot of things that cloud is useful for there. At the end of the day, digital transformation is not about cloud. Digital transformation is about the customer experience, about the business model transformation.
Yep.
We have to take into account all of that, right?
So in terms of the business value as a dimension towards making it much more meaningful, how many of the organizations have started looking at a multi-cloud approach? Do they even have that understanding and acumen to understand how we can orchestrate the multi-cloud strategy? It's not just picking in here and there and looking at to see if what fits in. Is there a method to madness when it comes to multi-cloud adoption strategy?
That's a great question. And what I would say there is, yes, there is. Cloud is not a destination. Cloud is an approach, right? And multi-cloud, even more specifically, right? You have to plan into it. What we have seen a lot of times is that companies stumble into multiple clouds versus using multi-cloud strategies to help them get all of the advantages, right? Couple of common examples for why people have multiple clouds. One, you've chosen AWS as your prime, but you're also running Office 365. And in order to successfully use Office 365, you have to use Azure Active Directory, which you're going to run in Azure. Or you may have chosen Azure, right? But your financial systems, your ERP runs on Oracle.
Correct.
And Oracle has a little sidecar with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure that needs to come along and support the ERP system that you run.
Right.
Right. Or another great example is you've had all the best intentions. You focus your entire organization on one cloud, and then your CEO goes out and buys another company, another cloud. Right. So all of these things are going to happen. Right. So quite frankly, I've seen a couple of different strategies here, right? A couple of different ways that people approach this. One is when they look at a cloud, they look at a big design up front. They're going to spend a whole bunch of money, a whole bunch of time, multiple years to figure out what's the optimal place to put all of their workloads. We're going to map out all of the things that we're going to do, and we're going to put this big strategy. Typically, we hire a bunch of consultants to come in and do this for us because we've never done it before. So we don't know what the hell we're doing. Right? So we spent $500,000, $1 million to get this big strategy, and now we got a piece of paper or a PowerPoint deck. Now what do we do? Right. So that's the first thing I've seen. Second thing I've seen is greenfield. Right. We see people start their journey into the cloud by building some new applications wherever the developers want to put them. Right. Which is really fine and can be very, very successful for those applications. But now what do you do with anything else? Because you didn't do that work with any thought to what was going to come next. You just wanted to build a cool thing on the cloud. And then the third way that I've seen it over and over again is the CIO who has in his or her leadership team for the year said, we need our big strategies for this year. Let's go cloud first.
Right.
Let's pick AWS and let's gonna move everybody there. Right. Which is great and has a lot of value. It mobilizes the organization. Everybody gets excited. Everybody gets going. And they start to push stuff out into the cloud. And then they realize, oh, wait, it's more expensive. It takes a lot longer. And it's not working quite the way I thought it would.
Right.
Right. So I think that you've got to really go into this with a multi-cloud strategy up front that leverages tooling and data to help you pick the right places to land your workloads, that really puts security at the forefront, because more clouds, more places for you to have security holes.
Right.
So you gotta make sure you've got a clear policy-based multi-cloud security strategy. And then you got to be able to think about your operations. How are you going to drive your operations to simplify your multi-cloud world, right? Because you can't have your infrastructure team trying to learn 3 different clouds and all of the nuances and things that go into that, right? So if you're going to take those 3 approaches to cloud smarter, cloud safer, and cloud simplified, then what that allows you to do is to start to put the most important thing back into play, which is how am I going to leverage the cloud to drive the business outcomes that I'm looking for, to transform my business models, to transform my customer experiences, to really drive my digital transformations.
Sure.
Now, how many organizations are doing that? Not many. Right.
And this also brings to the topic of skills, right? Because a core area about skills is, okay, I've seen people posting, oh, I am the AWS cloud administrator. I'm an Azure DevOps administrator, or whatever they are talking about. So do you think that the skills and certification that are being given by vendors, is it not sufficient for them to be applying it in a real world situation? Are we still missing some gap between what are some of the aspects to focus on skill development in a cloud environment? What do you think should be the core ingredients to build capability if you think that you are an expert on a particular cloud strategy? What would be your thought?
Yeah, I think there's value in the certifications and training that are offered by the various cloud vendors. I think they're very good, but they're by their very nature vendor specific, right? They are very specific to a particular cloud, and so what that does is that kind of limits your view of what's possible, right? We talked a little bit about this last time, if I remember right. I'm a big believer in technology and the identification of what's possible,
Right.
right? Identifying the new what's possible as the technologies enable for us. That to me is where we can truly be the most successful. And I think when you focus on the specifics of a particular certification, like you're mentioning, it narrows your view and makes it difficult to see the bigger picture. I think we have to have people seeing the bigger picture.
Right. So the last question before we see whether it's myth or buster is that if we don't have cloud, we have we can we still do digital transformation, or can we still start doing all the things and then put the cloud a little later, because based on the appetite and the opportunity they see in hand? Is that a possibility, or do you think that they have to look at cloud as a first opportunity before they can drive their digital transformation roadmap?
Yeah, that's a great question. So um, for me, I think that cloud can be a really important element of a digital transformation, but I don't think it's required, right? Especially not holistically across your enterprise, right? And here's why. When we started that conversation around what is a digital transformation, we talked about how digital transformation is focused on client experiences and business models. What we didn't say is digital transformation is not focused on operating models. It's not focused on the work inside of your company, right? So it is very possible for you to limit the focus of your digital transformation and um, try to leverage technologies that can support that particular effort, right? Cloud may be one of those technologies, but it doesn't have to be. And cloud doesn't have to be something that you do across your enterprise before you can start on a digital transformation journey. But I do think that cloud can add a lot of value to a digital transformation. I think, and more importantly, I would say some of the mindsets that cloud brings, some of the practices that we tend to see organizations put in place when they are adopting cloud, things like Agile and DevOps from an internal build perspective, things like SRE, automation, infrastructure as code. All of those things can be really beneficial
Right.
when it comes to the experimentation that you want to do in a digital transformation.
Right.
One of the things that's very, very different about digital transformation is the idea that you don't know what your end state looks like in a digital transformation. You have to experiment and learn from your customers where you want to take things. Very different from building an accounting system inside your company.
Right.
You know how to build an accounting system when you start, right? But that digital transformation, you don't know what your client wants, your customer wants. So you have to experiment and work through that. And that's where I think maybe not 100% reliant on cloud as technologies. I think the technology can be helpful. I think the practices that people are starting to adopt in parallel with their cloud efforts, those practices are absolutely critical to a digital transformation.
That's a great point, because I think when you're orchestrating your pipeline, looking at continuous integration delivery model, looking at building in reliability and resilience as part of SRE, looking at your monitoring infrastructure, and trying to look at the level of preparedness that you are into this whole episode is going to be critical. Because and adopting a tool chain approach, because one size never fits all, you need to kind of look at how your appetite is towards the growth and development of your offerings in terms of delivery capabilities, your velocity of the teams, but also in terms of how are we leveraging your own core expertise in driving products and features which are delivering business value. That's going to be the crux of how an organization is going to establish its identity. And this is just about adding a feather on the cap, but not really the most part of it to what we'd say that is essential. So In my opinion, I look at cloud first is not necessary to start your digital transformation. So it's um, I would say it's busted, but I would allow you to tell what you think about it.
You know, I think I would lean towards busted as well. I think there's a lot of value in bringing cloud into the conversation and a multi-cloud approach into the conversation to support digital transformation. But I think I agree with you. It is not a requirement to be cloud first to successfully deliver a digital transformation. So I think we are busted.
Yeah, excellent. So we bust this whole second myth about
Busted.
transformation does not require a cloud first. So please stay tuned and post your views. We will be more than happy to pick up from the LinkedIn post and through tweets, and also with and Mark Smalley actually tweeted a bit of things. So we have a whole lot of list of backlog that we need to refine the backlog and do it. So thanks, Mark Smalley and others who have continued to chip.
Many others. We've got lots and lots of great suggestions,
Yeah.
and I think we're going to be doing this for a long time.
Yeah, so I thank everyone, and thank you, Mike, for spending your time today and missing another myth and busting another myth, and we'll see what is in store for us the next time. Until then, stay safe, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.